Welcome to episode 5 of the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. Today, our topic is the 4 hungers. Learn what the 4 different hunger types are. See what clues those hungers can give you to help you not overeat. Learn how to feed those hungers and come away with a tool to practice now. Let's get started. Welcome to the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. I am Kim McLaughlin and I am the host of the show. I am a psychotherapist, blogger, motivational speaker, and best-selling author. Today we're going to talk about a different kind of topic, and it is about 4 hungers. There's not just one type of hunger, really. There are 4 different types of hunger, and we're going to go into them in depth today. You also can read about them in my book, Feed Your Soul, Nourish Your Life, a 6-step system to peace with food. It's on page 17, and it describes it a little differently than I'm going to describe it today, but we're going to go pretty much in depth in this podcast on these 4 areas. The 4 hungers are physical hunger, heart and emotional hunger, mouth hunger, and head hunger. Each one of them interacts with us in a different way and can lead us to overeat if we're not paying attention to what's going on. I always like starting with physical hunger because to me that's a starting place of eating when we're really in tune and intuitively eating. Physical hunger is when your body needs fuel, when you feel hungry. What happens when we have had a history of over-dieting and of overeating, we don't necessarily notice physical hunger and aren't really in contact with it or don't quite pay attention to it if we do notice it. I find as I've been doing this work that I've had to really get reconnected with my feeling of physical hunger and listening to what's going on inside of my body. One way that I do that is I have a 10 scale system that helps me and my clients figure out how hungry am I. The 10 scale is pretty simple concept. It's a 1 to 10 scale where 1 is overly hungry and 10 is overly full and 5 is being satiated. So 5's in that middle point of like, I'm not too hungry, I'm not too full, I'm just right. What we want to look at is eating when we're at a 3 or a 4 and stop eating when we're about a 6 or a 7. When we get into those outlying areas, a 1 or a 2 means that we're just way too hungry. And you and I know that when we're way too hungry, we are going to overeat, and that takes us into feeling overfull, which is at an 8, 9, or 10 on that scale. This scale helps you become more connected to the physicalness of when you need to eat and what your body is really asking of you. The second type of hunger is emotional hunger. And that might sound interesting to you that it's moving off of the physical, but more into the emotional or heart-centered side that leads us to eat. This is when you eat because you're upset, because you're angry, or you're anxious, or you feel stressed, or lonely, or bored. Those all can lead us to overeat. And then we feel kind of out of control because we're not eating from a place of physical hunger and we're trying to satisfy that heart hunger. And if you think about it, heart hunger cannot be satisfied by food. Heart hunger cannot be satisfied by food. We need something different when our emotions are needing to be taken care of. The third kind of hunger is mouth hunger. And that is that feeling and sensation in your mouth where you feel, kind of you lick your lips and go, something sounds good. Or you start to smell some smells of food and you think, oh, that sounds good, or I'd like to have that. But you're not connected to any kind of physical sensation of being hungry. It's more that mouth sensation of that particular type of food sounds good. This happens a lot. I noticed for myself at least, in the mall because they have all these smells all over the place. And one of them is like Cinnabon, where they have the smells wafting down the kind of the aisle as you're going towards. And what I have found is that smell can make me think I want to eat. I feel compelled. You might have too. And I think that's why they actually put that smell out, is so that we can want to eat their food, even when we're not hungry and even when we don't necessarily want it. Mouth hunger can lead us often then to overeat. And then we feel bad about ourselves when we overeat. The fourth type of hunger is head hunger, and that is when you think about food often and you can't stop. It's more of obsessive thoughts, and you think about it and think about it. I find that happens sometimes when the food's right in front of us. Let's say there's a candy dish in front of us, or you're in the office and somebody brings in a bunch of donuts. It's hard to stop thinking about those donuts because you know they're over there. I have had a lot of history of that kind of obsessive thoughts about food, overthinking, thinking about it, and not caring anything about my physical hunger or what my body really needed. I would then eat in order to stop the thoughts. So when I ate in order to stop the thoughts, there was no sense of what my body really needed. And then I'd feel bad about myself. I'd feel upset, and I might have an upset tummy, or it would throw off my whole eating for the rest of the day because I ate this food that I really wasn't hungry for. I only ate it to stop the thoughts in my head. If you look at these four types of hunger, then we can then think about, well, if I have these types of hunger, if I start identifying these types of hunger, what can I do about it? And I have some tips for you about how to handle each of these hungers, so then you feel more empowered when you're around food and more empowered when this hunger comes up. Hi everyone, this is Kim, and my book is out. Feed Your Soul, Nourish Your Life, a 6-step system to peace with food is live. I recommend you get it. It has all my 6 components of feeding your soul, as well as my own story. Pick it up now. You can find it on my website at feedyoursoulunlimited.com. Thanks. So how do you feed these hungers? How do you take care of them? First is the physical hunger, and there are signs of physical hunger. You might not have noticed them as well, or you might want to start noticing them more. And that's the feeling of physical hunger, like my tummy feels empty. My tummy is grumbling. I am feeling shaky. I have a little headache. I feel lightheaded. Those are all signs that I need to eat, that my body is physically hungry for nourishment. And how do I feed that hunger? I eat. When you're physically hungry, eat food. We'll talk later in a different podcast about, once you've noticed the hunger, how do you decide what kind of food you want to eat and how much you eat and when do you stop. But first, you've got to notice that there's physical hunger. That's the starting point to eating. The second type of hunger, emotional hunger, we want to feed emotional hunger with proper care. So you got to start out noticing those feelings and noticing what's going on. The way I think the starting point to figure out emotional hunger is to notice when you're starting to feel hungry. You check in with yourself and notice you're not physically hungry, but you still want to go and eat. Often then, if you track it back, you can find that there is some type of emotion going on. That takes a little bit of skill to do this, and it's why I talk about these hungers, because we want to start noticing when those emotional hungers are coming up. First, it's noticing that there might be a feeling going on. I'm not physically hungry. I wonder if I'm having a feeling. It's a nice conversation to have with yourself to start wondering what's going on and why am I wanting to eat when I'm not hungry? Checking in with your heart and wondering, what am I feeling right now? What's going on for me? Sometimes you can ask that question in terms of what's been going on throughout the day and what emotion might be coming up. I find often we have our eating comes because of feelings like feeling overwhelmed or anxious or lonely or bored. And those are oftentimes feelings that once you start identifying it, those are the feelings that come forth. There are a lot of other feelings that might lead you to overeat. And I think about in general, like if you want to think about general type of feelings and how those affect you, it is looking at sad, happy, lonely, bored, scared, overwhelmed, anxious. Those are often feelings that you can look at a general picture of, are any of those coming up for me? What you want to do is notice the feeling, name the feeling, and then ask yourself, what do I need to do about this feeling? Can you see that it's different to have a reaction to your feeling like you want to eat, but your tummy's not hungry? You notice then that you ask yourself, what is the feeling that's coming up? And you say, loneliness. Well, then you can do something about it. You can do something about the loneliness. And that could be something like going out with friends, making a phone call, checking in, go take a walk. But something around the lonely feeling is productive. When you do something that is in the service of taking care of that feeling, you're actually being productive and you're helping to put that emotion, you're able to take care of that emotion. And that's what we're looking to do. How do you feed mouth hunger? Once again, you've got to notice it. You've got to notice whether it's mouth hunger or some other kind of hunger. This hunger, once again, comes up when you're noticing that you're not physically hungry, but a food sounds good. When you have mouth hunger, you could eat if you want to. As you know, I've said this before, I'm not telling you not to eat. Even when you're not hungry, you can eat. But when you have mouth hunger, it's wondering, is this something I really want? How am I going to feel if I actually eat this? And am I just being kind of encouraged to eat because of the smell from the Cinnabon store? Or am I being encouraged to eat because someone left donuts on the table in the break room? Or am I being encouraged to eat because somebody put candy out on their desks? Those aren't reasons why you have to eat. You can if you'd like. But once you start noticing that it's really about mouth hunger, you can then decide, is this something I really want to do? It's an empowering position that you're coming from when you look at it this way. How do you feed head hunger? Same thing as the others is you have to start noticing it. When you start having those thoughts about, I really want to eat, I really want to have something, check back in with your tummy and am I physically hungry? If you're not physically hungry and you still want to eat, check in about what those thoughts are that are going in your head. I told you my story about how I used to have these thoughts about wanting to eat, and they just were relentless and they wouldn't stop. And what I had to do was start having different conversations with myself. I'd start noticing the thought of, it'd say something like, oh, Kim, you really want to have that. Kim, you really want to eat it. Kim, you really want to eat it. And what I'd say to myself is just because I have that thought doesn't mean I have to eat. That was a really empowering position to start noticing these thoughts were making me want to eat. And then having the conversation with myself about these thoughts aren't in charge of me, kind of having a little rebellion against those thoughts and saying, you're not in charge of what I do. And just because I have a thought to eat does not mean I need to eat. So I put a buffer in between the thought and actually eating by having these conversations with myself. Once again, it's a very empowering position to come from when you start regrouping and looking at what kind of hunger is coming up. And then as you notice which hunger is coming up for you, then you can make a plan to deal with it, to address it. As we do with every podcast, we talk about a tool you can use related to the topic that we've had. Today's topic, the 4 hungers, I think the best tool you can use is your tool of observation and starting to observe when you're feeling hungry or when you want to eat or you think you're hungry, and check in with yourself and ask yourself, is this true physical hunger? Is this emotional or heart hunger? Is this mouth hunger or is this head hunger? Once you ask that question, you can then begin to name it, and then make a decision whether you want to eat from that type of hunger. Checking in this way can lead you to move out of overeating or binge eating and gives you a method that is always workable and always at your fingertips. I want to thank you for joining me on this podcast about these 4 hungers. There's a lot more we can talk about in regards to these hungers, and we will in further podcasts. This is a good starting spot for us to develop some words to start noticing our hunger and what to do about those hungers. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kim McLaughlin, and I wish you a great day, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye. Thank you for joining us on the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast. We come to you every Monday with fresh new ideas to help you end emotional eating and put food in its proper place as nourishment. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast and review it and let us know what you think. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, my house had some water damage and I need to know what's covered. No, we don't have any furs or pewter dishware. No gravestones either. Look, we have normal stuff, like from this century.
Don't find out your home insurance is outdated after it's too late. Hippo includes more coverage for the things you have today, like computers.
It's like a typewriter with a screen?
And Hippo can cost up to 25% less. Visit myhippo.com to get a quote in 60 seconds. Hippo is a licensed property casualty insurance agent with products underwritten by various insurance companies. Covered subject to underwriting qualification. Savings vary.
Farmers Insurance knows the difference between a car hitting your bumper and a clown car hitting your bumper.
Sorry about that.
Because we covered it. Click for more.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Underwritten by Farmers Truck Fire Insurance Exchanges and Affiliates. Products not available in every state.